been a bit, I think, since I did a video on my own, and I had originally intended to make this a live, and I had started the live, but I had the babies out, and then the upstairs neighbor's dog just started wiling out, so it didn't work, and I scrapped it. So I figured it would just make more sense to do this in just a regular video, just because I can control what's going on around me, because I'm pretty sure the neighbors are upstairs or home, so I don't think the dog is gonna start wiling out or anything. And I think the babies are about to go to sleep, so we shouldn't be too bothered by them. But I've been wanting to do this for a bit, and I keep saying I'll do this in 2 parts, I'll do this in 2 parts. But finally I think I'm gonna get a chance to do it. So this angle probably isn't that good, but I'm sitting in the living room and Mikey's in the other room and the babies are here somewhere. So in the first part of this video that I did, it was originally a video, and then we did a live about it where I went into more detail, you know, about sex addiction and all that fun stuff. And you guys were really super supportive and encouraging, and there was more kind of memories that popped up as a result of doing that video, and not in a bad way, but there's more things that I wanted to say and more specific stories that I wanted to tell. This video isn't actually going to be so much about sex addiction as it is going to be about the abusive relationship that I had found myself in as a result of the addiction. So if you were here for the original live, I talked about the man in specific. I didn't name his name. I think we called him Joe 4 or something. But for the purposes of just making this simple, we'll just call him Jay. Because I won't put his name out there. It's just, it's easier if I just call him Jay. So, and I keep focusing on him specifically because he threw out, and I think I talked about this in the live, in the whole addiction and in what was going on with me in the midst of other men, he was always a constant. He was always around in some way, shape, or form. I would always somehow return to him or come back and start talking to him. He was just always there. So a lot of my time and a lot of my personal life kind of surrounded him, and I realize now that that's probably how he wanted it, and that's kind of where the abuse plays in, but I'm going to get to that. But there was a specific incident that I remembered and I wanted to talk about in the first one, and I either forgot about it or I just never got to it. And I wanted to tell this story specifically because it's testament to how far I was willing to go to keep him happy, and also this is really hard to explain. Like, you're gonna hear me like ramble and say a lot because I've been thinking about this like all week and how I was gonna word this, and it seemed easy at the time, but now, like, sitting in front of you doing this, it's a little difficult, but I'm gonna do the best I can. But I wanted to tell this story specifically because it shows how willing I was how willing I was to keep him happy, how far I actually went, how far it almost went, and I think what led me to ultimately just deciding I was done and that I deserved more and I deserved better. So I'm not going to be too graphic with this. It's kind of easier to be a little bit more graphic in the lives, but I wanted this to be a little bit more formal, so I won't get too grotesque. But if you remember the subject matter of the live, which is, it's in the list. I don't remember what we called it, but you'll see it. It's there. It was only from like a month or two ago. But if you remember the subject matter of that live, then you'll know what to expect in this one. If this is your first time seeing me or watching a video where I'm in it, you should probably go back a little bit and watch that live that I did with Mikey a couple months ago to get a better understanding of what I'm talking about. But to sum it up, in the couple of years before I met Mikey, I was struggling, and I ended up like basically just neck deep in sex addiction and this cycle of sex with strangers and sex with strange men and people I hardly knew or people I did know, and risky situations, not telling people where I was going, not using protection, which ultimately led to an STD diagnosis, which I'll struggle with for the rest of my life. I'll always have it. I'm not ashamed of it. But this story specifically I wanted to tell. So, again, this was a couple years before I met Mikey. So the man that I'm going to be talking about, that I discussed in the previous live, Jay, he had been, for the longest time, trying to get me to agree or coerce me into being with another man while he watched. And every time he would say that, I would try to distract him or maybe change the subject just so he would forget about it. And sometimes it would work, other times it wouldn't. And he knew how to, I realize now, he knew how to manipulate me into doing what he wanted, and he knew how to guilt me. And also, this is kind of something I invented in my head, but there were things that he had, and there were things that he knew about me. He had compromising pictures of me, videos of me. He knew things about my family. He had an idea where I lived, but I never actually gave him my exact address, but he did have an idea of where I lived. And I guess I was either afraid of retaliation, or maybe I was more afraid of displeasing him and not making him happy. So one day when I was talking to him, I think I had just gotten off work, he texted me and he said, okay, what are you doing tomorrow or the next day? And I said, no, I'm off work. Why? And he said, okay, I want you to come meet me where we usually meet. And on the days where he would have me meet him when he was getting off work, he would always have me meet him in the same place. I would have to meet him at a DMV. And if you're from Jersey, you'll know where it is. I think it was a DMV in West Deptford or something. I don't even remember. It was a DMV. That's all I know. And I would have to meet him there if he was just getting off work and decided that he wanted it, that he wanted me. So I would. And he said to me, you're going to meet me in this place, and I'm going to have my friend with me. And I said, excuse me? What are you talking about? You're going to have a friend with you. And what I was told was that I was going to have sex with this man who I had never met. I didn't know his name. I didn't have a photo of him because he wouldn't give me that information. I said, well, what is his name? What is what does he look like? Can I see a photo of him? I don't know anything about him. And what he said to me was, you don't need to know any of that. That doesn't matter. I've known him for a while. I trust him. So you're going to do this. And the next thing that he said, it still sticks with me to this day for some reason. I don't know why. But then he said to me, you're going to do this. You're going to please him. You're going to make him happy. Because the way you behave for him and the way that you please him and you satisfy him is a direct reflection on how I've trained you. This is what Jay is telling me. He's basically telling me that he has trained me and conditioned me in such a way that no matter what he threw at me, no matter what he told me to do, no matter how gross or disgusting, that I would do it. And I would be expected to do it. So I agreed, but I did not want to do it. I agreed because I thought, I had consistently been saying to myself, okay, if I just do this one last thing, if I just do this one more thing that'll make him happy, he won't need to do any of this anymore. He won't need me to do any of these gross things. He won't need me to try to prove myself to him in order to get his attention or his affection. And I had convinced myself that if I just kept doing this, then eventually he would love me and he would give me the attention that I wanted. And he knew how to give me just enough of that attention, but also withhold it so that I would keep on coming back for more. And he was very good at this. He was very charming. He had this like magnetic charisma that was so attractive to me. To this day, I don't know why, but that's the thing. Abusers are very, very good at that. They know how to manipulate their victims and guilt their victims and gaslight their victims. And it's not just men. I've met lots of predatory women in my day. He just happened to be a man. So that was how he kept me his loyal lapdog, basically. He would keep me at arm's length, just far enough away from his personal and private life where nobody in his immediate circle knew about me. He knew how to sneak me in and sneak me out without anybody ever knowing. He lived far enough away from me where he wouldn't have to like run into me in public. But I was also close enough where I could show up at a moment's notice to let him just bang one out and then send me on my way. And I would, because this is what he had led me to believe, that this is what love was, and this is what that was what my purpose was, basically, in this relationship. And I say relationship very loosely because it wasn't like we were in a committed partnership. In fact, he encouraged me to see other men and sleep with other men only because he liked when I would turn around and tell him about it, tell him about those encounters, go into great detail about those encounters. He would get off on it, I guess. I mean, I'm not a man, but maybe if I were to put myself in that state of mind, maybe that's what he wanted. You know. But he would expect me to tell him about other encounters. But he would also, when I did this, he would then reiterate to me, well, you know who you actually belong to, right? You know who actually owns you. You know whose property you are, right? Like, you know who owns you. And I'd have to say you do. Because this is what I had been conditioned to do. I didn't actually, I mean, what I really wanted was him. But because he had basically dangled, what it felt like, looking back now, was that almost like you're dangling a treat in front of an animal and giving them just enough slack on a leash to do whatever they would want to do, to run, but then pulling back really quick and restricting them. That's almost what it feels like looking back today. So when I was told that he would bring this other man into an encounter with us, I agreed because I felt like I had been backed into a corner. I felt like I didn't have a choice. At the time, whether I didn't know or understand, I didn't know that I could say no to him. I didn't know that I could refuse because of either out of fear or judgment or being cast out. I agreed because in my mind, I had convinced myself that belonging to him and being made to do all these things and being miserable was better than being alone and being miserable. Because what I didn't want was to be alone. That's absolutely not what I wanted. I didn't realize that I could be happy being alone. So this is what I kept on doing. This was the path that I kept taking. So I distinctly remember going down the freeway feeling like I was going to throw up because I knew that once I pulled in there and I saw his van, I knew that I would see another van in there and that would be it. I would have to do it. So I pulled in and I'm waiting for him and I see his big black service van in my rear view mirror and I'm like, okay, here it goes. I don't know what I'm about to see. I don't know what I'm about to have to do, but I said to myself, okay, we'll just get this over with and maybe this one last thing will make him happy. Maybe I'll finally be worth something in his eyes. So he pulls in next to me and I look over and it's just him. He's by himself. And I remember feeling relieved. I took like this big breath. I'm like, oh God, okay, well this I can handle. I can handle him. I can handle just him. As rough as he could be sometimes, I could handle him. I knew how to handle this because I had taught myself or trained myself to take whatever he gave me and then be on my way. Never mind the fact that I would drive home crying every time, not really understanding why. But I said, okay, I can handle this. So I climbed in, I gave him a kiss like I was always supposed to, and I feigned interest. I said, oh, what happened? I thought your friend was supposed to be here or whatever. And he said, oh, it didn't work out. He had something to do today. Whatever. You just get me today. So, and I think I had an adrenaline drop or something just because I remember I was shaking and I had just been so nervous. And we went to this public park that we would always go to. It was like 10 minutes away. So we would go and he would find a secluded area to park in. He put it in park. And then I'd have to climb in the back seat of the van and undress. And then he'd climb back there with me and we would just do it. And then it'd be over and then he'd drive me back. And like I explained in the first live, I'd feel good for 5 minutes. You know, I'd feel like I was on top of the world and that I was happy and the serotonin kicks in. And then I would drive home and I'd cry. So looking back now, I realize that was probably just the dopamine wearing off, nice little adrenaline crash. So that was it. That was that day. But it never happened. That encounter never got to be. And to my recollection, I don't believe it was brought up again. And that was that. But as I was preparing to film this, I was thinking to myself, if that man had been there, whoever he was, to this day I still don't know his name, don't know what he looked like. If he had been there, what would have happened was I would have been expected to go back there, be nice and obedient and pliant for him, basically, and have sex with him and do whatever he wanted, while Jay, my owner, would sit in the driver's seat and keep watch, basically. So maybe this is stupid, but I don't actually know what he would have been getting out of that. I know this is a thing some people have, you know, watching, voyeurism, I guess. Maybe that was it. But that's basically all he would have been able to do. And then just occasionally look back there and watch me satisfy this stranger virtually. And I didn't know his name. He would never tell me his name. So I think the scariest thing about this is that if something had gone wrong during this encounter, if he had roughed me up, or if something had happened that I absolutely did not want to happen, I wouldn't have been able to identify him because I didn't know his name. All I would have had was a face. I didn't have any other distinctive information. So that scares me even to this day. And I was also expected to wear something. This was always something I had to do. And I would have to wear something easily removable so that he could just get in and get out, basically. And until this day, currently, and he liked it when I wore skirts, basically. Skirts or shorts or something I could just easily take on and off. To this day, I can't wear skirts. I won't. I refuse. It makes me feel exposed. It makes me feel just open, and I don't like it. I prefer to be all covered up and in things that are like this. Like, I like this because it's comfortable, but also it's almost like a security blanket, I guess. So that's what happened that day. And looking back now, I don't know what would have happened if that man had been there and that's what I would have been expected to do. Who knows? I mean, that was kind of the beginning of the end, I think, because I realized sometime after that he didn't actually care. That he didn't actually care about my well-being or my safety. And I think I mentioned this in the first video, in the first live that I did. How Jay, this man in particular, was actually engaged the entire time. He was going to get married 5 weeks after the date that I found out. And that was the whole secrecy thing. That was why I could never be around if someone in his family or his friend group was around. That was why I would always have to come to him in this big secret thing, like, meet me here and then I'll pick you up here. That was why everything had to be this big ruse. That's why we can never go out, because he was an engaged man and I was just his obedient whore. Now, I know that's not what I am. That was how he saw me. I know that's how he saw me because that's what he told me. That's what he liked to call me. And some people are into the degradation things. I'm not. But that's what he would call me. That might have been my contact name in his phone for all I know. I don't know what, I don't know what it was, but basically he could just call me or text me, come over here, and I would, like a dog. So for the longest time afterwards, I struggled with those feelings. I sat on those feelings for the longest time. So then, I think like a year later, I met Mikey, and the anxiety kind of started coming back, I think because I was being intimate with a man again, and because once I left the ownership of Jay, I kind of stayed celibate for a little while. I just wanted to do my own thing and just work and live my life, basically. And then just by a happy accident, I met Mikey. So then the feelings of, okay, I have to please him, I have to make him happy, like, those came back. So then that landed me in therapy, but I worked through it, through the EMDR therapy. I went into detail about that in the live, but it really did wonders for me. So I think the moral of this story is that whenever people ask people who are victims of abuse, oh, why didn't you just leave? Why didn't you just do this? Blah, 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 blah. Unless you've actually been in that position, and unless you've known firsthand what it's like, it's so fucking hard. Because by the time you realize this isn't right, this isn't okay, you're in too deep. You're stuck. It's like trying to keep your head above water, but you can't swim. He knew things about me. He had pictures of me. He had videos of me. He had all this stuff. So, but also I had convinced myself that I loved him. And I would say to myself, well, he isn't all bad, you know. And he was good at this too. He knew how to be cruel and then be nice. And then give me some attention and adoration. Back to the cruelty. And it would go on and on and on. And it's hard. It's not easy. And if you're a survivor of abuse, you've got my respect. You've got all of it. I mean, even if you're a man or a woman, I don't care, because anybody can be a victim of abuse, especially men, because nobody talks about that. Not enough people talk about abusive relationships enough. But I had also convinced myself that that's not what it was. It wasn't an abusive relationship because, number one, it wasn't like a committed thing, because he liked when I would go with other people. He wouldn't just hit me whenever he felt like it. He would always just save that for when I was in his bed, or really his fiance's bed, because it was her house, it was her bed, it was her car. Sometimes he would pick me up in. Didn't find that out till later. But he wouldn't always hit me either. But the times that he would hit me, it would take me by surprise, like, because he might have been really, really, really nice beforehand. And then once he had me where he wanted, then he would deal me that blow. Like, when I talked about this in the other live where we had been in bed and I'd been straddling him, and he reached up and he choked me. And to this day, that's still something that bothers me, because sometimes I just think about that, and I remember like scratching him and hitting him, thinking to myself, okay, if something happens, you know, his DNA is under my fingernails, you know, it's not like it's not like I'm just going down for this, because you're going to go down too. But through all this, I still didn't leave. I didn't go. I don't really know what actually pushed me over the edge. I think it was just this culmination of things, like when he put his hands on me, and then the whole be with another man thing. It just built and built until finally I think I just ghosted him. And he tried to get in contact with me several times, even when, like, in the beginning when I was with Mikey, I think he tried. But I let it be, and there's like a notification. I would just let it be, and I wiped the slate clean, basically. I wanted a new life. It was right there, and I just took it. I took a chance, and 3 years later, here we are, I got a nice apartment. I got 2 ferrets that I love, and we're getting married. He has a new job now, and we'll be house hunting in a few months. So there's exciting things for us on the horizon. And this doesn't define me. The past, what I've done, what I did before I met him doesn't define me. He never saw me any differently. So when I explained to him my status, about the STD that I have, when I told him where I had come from before I met him, he never saw me any differently. He didn't judge me, not even once. All he ever asked was that I was just honest with him, and that I communicate to him if he ever did anything or said anything, even the slightest little thing, as long as I just said to him what bothered me, that he would always protect me, and that I never had to worry about any man hurting me ever again. And 3 years later, he's still remained true on that promise. He always, even out of the blue, he'll just say to me, you're safe, right? Do you feel safe? And I always say yes, because I do feel safe. I feel the safest that I've ever felt. I feel protected, but not in a cocoon. Like, I don't feel stifled. I feel like I've been able to finally be free, while also having the security that I needed. And I think that's all that I could have ever asked for. I think that's all anybody should ever have in a relationship. The security and the safety, and also the love. So I like to do more videos on this, just because this is something that I'm really passionate about. And I don't mind sharing these stories. I'm an open book, I don't really care. But I'm gonna upload this tonight, and I look forward to seeing the feedback. And if I had tattoos, I'd do the outro thing. But I love you guys. We love you guys, and we'll talk to you soon.